Since time began, man has dreamt of flying like a bird. But actually doing it is much harder. Wingsuit flying is one of the world's most dangerous sports. Expert pilots have hit speeds of over 360 kilometers per hour, flown just meters from mountains, and caught every moment on camera. But how well can the suits really fly? They're designed to increase the distance the wearer goes forward for every meter they fall. This is known as the glide ratio. A glider goes 60 meters forward for every meter it drops. That's a glide ratio of 60 to 1. For a traditional paper aeroplane, it's about 5 to 1. And for a space shuttle on approach, it's a hair-raising 4 to 1. So how does a wingsuit's glide ratio compare? This is Staff Sergeant Ben Borger of the US Army Golden Knights, and he's about to put one to the ultimate test. He's flying up to an altitude of 32,000 feet in an attempt to soar further than anyone has ever gone in a wingsuit. But how well will he glide compared to the glider, the paper aeroplane, and the space shuttle? He makes his jump, and he soon hits a ground speed of over 160 kilometers per hour. He passes the 10-kilometer mark, then 15. But the ground is getting closer with every passing meter. 18.5 kilometers in, at the lowest safe altitude, he pulls his chute. So what glide ratio did Ben achieve? Not 60 to 1 like the glider, not 5 to 1 like the paper aeroplane, and not even 4 to 1 like the space shuttle. He actually averaged just 2 to 1, meaning that man flying like a bird remains some way off. Spinning at up to 500 revolutions per minute, helicopter rotor blades look as though they could do serious damage if they hit something. But that works both ways. At least 6% of helicopter accidents are caused by rotor strikes. In other words, through hitting a solid object. The pilots of these two helicopters are about to discover the cutting power of those blades, because they are both going to experience a rotor strike. This Canadian air ambulance is about to hit an insulated telephone cable. It's made of copper, coated with a layer of plastic. So what happened next? Do the rotor blades slice through the cable? Or does the cable damage the helicopter? The rotor blades cut through it like butter. It's not surprising. The outside of the blades can spin at up to the speed of sound. The blades are relatively thin and light, but when they're going this fast, the punch they deliver to the cable is about the same as if it were struck by a family car travelling at 50 kilometers an hour. In Auckland, New Zealand, another helicopter is about to hit a cable, this time made of steel. The tensile strength of steel varies according to how much carbon it contains. The steel in this cable is 10 times stronger than copper. So what happened next? Do the rotor blades slice through this cable, or does the cable damage the helicopter? And here's a clue. Look closely at the cable itself. Hitting the steel cable is almost enough to shear the aircraft in two. The pilot was lucky to walk away from the crash without serious injury. However, it wasn't just the tensile strength of the cable that led to the demise of the helicopter. It was also because the cable was dangling loose. The pilot of the air ambulance was lucky because he hit a taut cable. And it doesn't need a rocket scientist to tell you that cutting any kind of thread is easier if it's firmly anchored and taut. We spend about a third of our lives sleeping, but it's probably not the best thing to do when you're driving. Nobody dies in the clips you're about to see, but they are very lucky. Because 1 in 5 fatal crashes are caused by sleepy drivers. Driving while tired impairs your coordination and compromises your judgment. The driver of this truck has nodded off at the wheel. He's veering into the opposite lane. And another rig is heading straight towards him. So what happens next? Do the trucks crash or do they miss? At the last possible moment, the driver of the oncoming lorry takes evasive action and slips past the dozy driver. So why is it sometimes so difficult to stay awake on the road? Driving often requires intense concentration. And when we concentrate, there's a subtle change to the chemicals that fuel our brains. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP, is the fuel that helps us think. As we concentrate, ATP breaks down into adenosine, which makes us drowsy. As we drive, watch the levels change until finally, the adenosine makes us nod off. With the brain now needing less energy, ATP starts building up again, while adenosine levels fall, making you wake up, if you haven't crashed. Every week around the world, there are millions of cases of drivers falling asleep behind the wheel. Thankfully, not all of them crash. Recent research suggests 16 to 24-year-old drivers are most vulnerable. And official figures indicate it's more likely there will be a sleep-related accident if a driver regularly does long journeys, such as in an HGV. Engineers have installed new intelligent systems in some vehicles to stop drivers falling asleep by monitoring steering errors or through facial recognition. Whether they're effective deterrents, only time will tell. In a single year, up to 45,000 icebergs can be formed by carving glaciers. They range in size from just 50 meters across to frozen masses larger than the island of Jamaica and taller than a 55-story building. But their silent beauty carries a hidden danger. These lumps of ice have the potential to release incredible amounts of energy. Without warning, forces acting down in the depths can cause them to rise, roll, and even rupture. What you can see above the water represents just 10% of their enormous volume. The other 90% is hidden beneath the surface, and the surrounding seawater is slowly melting it away. When this happens, they can become severely unbalanced, unleashing as much energy as a minor earthquake as they flip, roll, or split their way back to a new, stable position. It goes without saying that you should give them a wide berth. But how close is too close? In Wilhelmina Bay, Antarctica, a sightseeing rib is about to find itself next to a collapsing iceberg. But are these tourists about to get hit by the resulting wave, flying shards of ice, or both? As the boat accelerates away from the wave, the tourists are pelted with baseball-sized lumps of ice. Nobody was injured, but this was a sightseeing trip they'll never forget. Coming up, crashing out and eating sand. How not to bring down a tree.
It's going the wrong way, oh my God.
And
Get inside, fail!
horror on the beach. motocross is all about bikes, speed, and incredible stunts. But be warned, this sport isn't easy. In fact, it injures tens of thousands of people each year. And the hardest part? Landing. Hit the ground with your front or rear wheel too low, and the consequences can be disastrous. So here's the question. Has this next rider got it right? Does he make a perfect landing or a crash landing? He lands with the rear wheel far too low and receives a mouthful of sand. Here's the next one. It's an even bigger jump than the last. And once again, his rear wheel is looking far too low. So, what happens next? Is this going to be a perfect landing or another crash landing? It's a textbook touchdown. This rider knew something that the last one didn't. He's using the angular momentum stored up in his spinning rear wheel to alter his pitch. By tapping his brakes in midair, he's able to transfer momentum from his rear wheel to the whole bike, pitching the machine downward. Once he's got his angle right, he hits the gas, creating a force in the opposite direction, stabilizing his approach. With this bit of physics mastered, it's possible to pull off some truly breathtaking stunts, if you can get the hang of it. Carolina Beach on the US eastern seaboard, August 2012. And hundreds of holidaymakers have just spotted a terrifying natural phenomenon heading towards them from far out at sea. It may look like a tornado, but it's not. It's a water spout. They appear to suck water up from the sea. However, apart from the bottom meter or so, the water spout actually contains freshwater droplets formed by condensation. Most common in tropical and subtropical waters, they're also found in the Gulf Stream, which runs close to the beach here in North Carolina.
Holy crow, right there. It's a water spout.
Julie came in and told us that there was a water spout out on the water, which is a good massive.
Among those vacationing here are Jeremy Kessler and Scott Barron, who are keeping a close eye on the water spout. They know these things have killed people.
I got it on video too.
They're coming this way?
You can see at the top the rotation of the clouds around it.
They take comfort from the fact that water spouts usually stay out at sea.
Looks like it's starting to dissipate. No, it's not. It's coming across the island.
It appears to be getting closer, a lot closer.
But to everyone's surprise, this water spout is heading straight for the beach.
At this point, we may need to leave.
We need to get in the car.
Oh, you gotta see this.
Jeremy,
What?
come on in.
That is amazing.
Jeremy, you need to get in.
The question in everyone's mind is, if the water spout keeps going and broaches dry land, will it disappear, or will it turn into a tornado?
I think you need to get inside.
When it gets onto the beach, we'll go in.
As Jeremy carries on filming, the swirling column heads straight towards him and his family.
Get inside. Get inside, film. There goes our chairs.
As umbrellas and other beachwear start flying through the air, it's quite clear that they are now standing in the path of a full-blown tornado. And if it reaches them, they could be plucked from the balcony.
Get in, Jeremy. You don't know which way it's gonna turn.
It's extremely rare for a water spout to do this, but when they do, they can be very destructive.
He's not listening.
It's going that way. Look, it's gone that way.
Luckily for Jeremy and his wife, on this occasion, the tornado vanishes as quickly as it appeared.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
It's one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth. In the United States alone, fatality rates in the logging sector are 20 times higher than average. Second only to the fishing industry. And that's when the professionals are doing it. Worryingly, there's also an army of amateur lumberjacks out there, wielding axes and chainsaws.
That's stupid.
But somewhat lacking in know-how. Take this guy. He wants to cut this 10-meter-high tree down to size. He wants to make it fall into the narrow gap between these two houses. He's made a cut on the far side of the trunk. Now he's cutting the near side. We won't lie to you, it doesn't end well. But why not? Does the tree hit the far house, the near house, or him? He got it partly right. The tree fell in exactly the right direction. The trouble is that it just kept falling in that direction until it hit him and the ladder. His mistake was not paying attention to the science. The classic method of tree felling looks like this. Cut a wedge in the trunk in the direction you want the tree to fall. That's the sink cut. On the opposite side, make the felling cut. Crucially, this has to be above the bottom of the sink cut. Leave at least 10% of the trunk's width uncut to act as a hinge. Then, a bit of leverage will move the tree's center of gravity until it's directly over the hinge. If you've got it right, gravity will do the hard work for you. But if you haven't,
Here goes, and it's going the wrong way. Oh my God.
well, it's probably too late.
Well, that was not good at all. We just took out half the house.
He had wanted it to fall in exactly the opposite direction. His mistake? He made his felling cut below the sink cut. If you do get the cut right, make sure there's enough clear space for the tree to fall. Getting this wrong could be very expensive. The Tube Ride is surfing's single greatest act, and also one of its most dangerous. Failing to stay just ahead of the collapsing wave can result in a potentially deadly wipeout. But despite the risks, surfers will travel to the ends of the earth in search of the ultimate ride. Quiapo, French Polynesia. A coral reef just 50 centimeters below the surface of the ocean is responsible for creating the barreling waves that make this beach a surfer's paradise. And just offshore, American Nathan Fletcher has begun the ride of his life. It's thought to be the biggest barrel ever caught on camera. But what happens next? Can he stay ahead of the break and tame this 11-meter wave? Or is he about to be crushed by tons of churning water? For a second, it looks like he's made it. But then, his world collapses around him. Surfers have died after hitting the reefs on this beach, but Nathan was unscathed. And $50,000 richer, after this video won a prize for the year's best ride at the Billabong Big Wave Awards. This is what earned him that prize. Waves grow when friction from the seabed slows them more at the bottom than at the top. But the real magic happens if they pass over a sudden elevation, like a reef or rocks. This abrupt change has the potential to create enormous barreling waves, held up and hollowed out by winds blowing off the coast. The bigger that change in elevation, the larger and more unpredictable the waves. And this next one is huge. Nazaré, Portugal. Thanks to a 5-kilometer deep undersea canyon, this little-known beach resort is home to some of the planet's most extreme surfing conditions. And American Garrett McNamara, one of the sport's greatest legends, is heading out to sea. He came in search of big waves, but even for him, this is enormous. He's riding on a wave measuring 24 meters high. That's taller than a 6-story building. And it's also beyond dangerous. Wiping out here could easily be fatal. So what happens next? Can he stay ahead of the break, taming this huge wave? Or is he about to experience one of the worst wipeouts in surfing history? As he fights to stay ahead of the break, a powerful wall of water beats at his back. He disappears from view. It looks like the worst has happened. But he holds his nerve and holds on. An incredible ride, which also made surfing history, entering the record books as the biggest wave anyone had ever surfed.